I am here with Gabriel Weiner. Gabriel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, John. My pleasure.
The reason I wanted to have you on is you do this series on your Facebook primarily, where you give these little nuggets of wisdom, but they're done more in the style of a koan, where it makes you think. It's not as obvious. And it's interesting to me because I see some people get it, and then some people get confused by trying to take things too literally. How did you get started with this form of communication?
Well, so I've been practicing Zen awareness practice, we call it, for about 10 years. And I'm a big fan of small statements that say a lot. And so I'm a big fan of the Socratic method, where you pose a question to the listener, and then instead of them waiting for you to give them the answer, they search within themselves to come up with their own answer. So I think that's why you get that koan feel from them, because koans, by their nature, are about you looking within yourself and seeing what you come up with in your own experience. So I think that I've been influenced by my Zen practice very much.
I completely get that from you. And I also appreciate the way that you encourage people to work hard, but also to keep looking within, almost why they're singing and the reasons that they are singing. Maybe speak to that journey of self-discovery that you want for singers.
Well, my path into the world of voice was a little fraught with some disagreement, because I wanted to sing like a rock singer, and I went to college for singing, and they wanted me to sing like a classical singer. So the instruction that they were giving me wasn't helping me to sing the way I wanted to sing. So I had to look outside of college for a teacher that would resonate more with me. And so I think that's a big part of what informs the work that I do now, is making sure that people are matched well with their teacher, and also that both people are in agreement as to like who's in charge. And as I see it, and the way I teach, is my student is in charge, and I want them to own I call it a vocal vision, how they imagine or envision themselves sounding, and how they want me to support them to do that. And when I was in college, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell my teacher, hey, help me sound like this. But unfortunately, I was met with, I'm older, I'm more experienced, I know what I'm talking about, and this is my methodology, and you are going to execute it well, and then I'll give you a good grade, but you're not going to be challenging me so much. And I've always been a very challenging student for all teachers, because I've always had a lot of questions, and I've always been very sure of like what I'm after. And so I hope that my students gain some of that for themselves, where they know what they're looking for, rather than just passively waiting to be given answers. So I expect that my students engage in that process of self-reflection and introspection and self-knowledge and self-awareness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And you're also, I love that you push people to work really hard, to practice. And it is a lot of work, but then you also ask them to be human and forgiving of themselves. And also, if I'm getting this right, you seem to take an attitude of transcending technique, that we don't get caught up in technique, that there is no one way to sing, and that it's a constant discovery and journey.
Absolutely. It's kind of like a lot of people have made that comparison of a voice teacher being like a personal trainer at the gym. And I'm passionate about fitness in my personal life as well. And I go to a really nice gym here in the city, and there's a lot of trainers, and I notice they all have their own approach, and their clients all get their own results that, hopefully they're looking for. And I also notice even just people that work out by themselves, they're all working out in their own way, and they're all getting results. So I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all way of teaching. And to your point of transcending technique, that comes from observing that some of my favorite singers ever never took lessons. And so not only that, but before there were voice teachers and before there was YouTube and before there were, technique books, there were great singers on the planet. So I'm more passionate about pointing people to, like, you already have it all in you. You just have to chip away all the things that are keeping you from getting there. It's about empowering the individual to believe that it's all there already, and I'm just there supporting that over and over and over again. One of my favorite philosophers, Ralph Waldo Emerson, I'm sure you've heard of. He was a transcendentalist, and that school of philosophy or thought talks about how the answers are all inside. And so I don't see myself so much as someone that is going to give you answers. It's just someone that's going to ask you questions that will get you to find the answers, or question the answers that you already came up with yourself. So I'm just constantly challenging people. That's kind of just the nature of my makeup structure. And I've always been like that. It drove my mom crazy. It drove my dad crazy. It drove my teachers crazy. But I'm just, my current boyfriend recently said that I am a critical thinker's critical thinker. So, I took that as a compliment because I find that to be true.
Yeah, and it's also with the voice, there are certain fundamentals, shall we say, where the voice will tend to work better. But as soon as we start to put strict guidelines or break it down into models and absolute technique, I think we really miss the totality and actually the mystery of this instrument.
Well, John, when I was in college, I wanted to be on Broadway. And I went to see Beauty and the Beast, and I was auditioning for a role, Gaston, in Beauty and the Beast. And when the guy came out to the stage door to sign autographs, I asked him I was a very technique-oriented college student. I became obsessed with vocal technique. I've read every book that I could get my hands on, and I still do, because I still find it like a passion of mine. But I remember asking this guy, about his larynx and if he kept it low or what he did, and he didn't know what I was talking about. And he didn't know it seemed like he didn't know what the larynx was. Like, his answer was very confusing because he was just like, well, I just get the larynx out of the way. He said something like that. And this guy was the lead in a show on Broadway. And that was the beginning of me realizing that a lot of people that are great singers don't know the first thing about technique, and they're having careers and, doing well with their singing. So I was just like a little clue that there's a distinction between being an avid consumer of, technical information and being someone that can actually have a career with singing. Because most of my voice teachers, I didn't think were good singers. So that was another thing that got me thinking, like, the thing that makes somebody a good singer is not knowing a lot about technique or these fundamentals. I also know a lot of people that would never get out of a voice lesson and they had difficulty singing. So I was like, something's funny here. So this is why I'm trying to, like, push people into seeing that they don't need to make this knowledge of vocal technique God, and that it's more about being uninhibited, having something to say, and, like, being sure that it's going to work out, kind of thing. And some people might say that's reductive, but so be it. One of the things I hope to one day, not me personally get famous for, but I hope this one of my quotes catches on, is that I don't believe that singing is an extension of speaking. I believe that speaking is a reduction of singing. I think we were all singers to begin with, and then we got socialized into being speakers. So I think we've reduced our ability to sing. And I'm just trying to get people to tap into that more primal potential that we have.
That's so funny because when they look at where language came from, they believe that our first communications were musical ones. And the language communicated emotion. And then we reduced that into where we could discuss concepts and different things. And that became the spoken language. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it's people's birthright to sing. I think it's the way we emotionally connect with each other. And we make it so precious and so intimidating that people never get to experience it.
Yeah, I think that's because we attach it with, competition or like achievement and all of that. And I've noticed that when that gets reduced in a person's psyche, that impetus to like be incredible, they sing much more freely. Yeah, I think we're applying too much pressure on ourselves to like sing technically perfectly. And I don't believe there's such a thing. I think if I take 10 of my favorite singers, they are all doing it in a slightly different way, a la what I was talking about with people working out at the gym. At the end of the day, to me, it's about like the result that they're getting and not so much about like the process that they're engaging in. So I get the fundamental thing, and I was very much into that for the first chunk of my maybe 10 years of my teaching. But at a certain point, I was like, I don't know. It seems like you, like I said, take 10 great singers and get them in a room, and they all kind of slightly disagree on how they're achieving the outcome that they're getting. Part of that is because they're singing different genres. Part of that is because there's different contexts within which they sing. A part of it is because some of them are like studio singers, some are live singers, some sing with a mic, some sing without, some like to scream, some like to sing, bel canto, that kind of stuff. That was what I was being fed, bel canto. But like, I don't remember ever asking for that. I didn't want that. I had no interest in that.
You're very focused on helping people find things that suit them and just the right song. How does one find what is suitable for their voice? Do you recommend they pick a genre and just work at it, or should they actually really listen and find what speaks to them?
Both. But I think the first thing you need to know is who you are and where you come from. I have students that love to listen to country music, but they're from New York City and have always been. And so I appreciate that they appreciate that culture and that sound, and that they enjoy because it's exotic to them. It's so foreign to them, but that doesn't mean that we need to appropriate it. And I'm not saying that you can't, that it's cultural appropriation and that art can't be borrowed from and you can't let it influence you. But I just don't believe that someone that is not born and raised in the country, in my opinion, is going to really resonate with the masses from that region. And so I'm not saying you can't sing country as a hobby, but I'm just saying like to pierce through mass consciousness and to resonate with those folks that are, likely to listen to you, it's probably best if you are from the country. And same goes for hip hop and R&B. And so it's just knowing where you come from, knowing what your influences were, and then just kind of creating your own identity by taking all of those influences. And I do believe that when we're young, we should explore and sing multiple genres. And then as we're exploring, whatever we're getting good feedback on from, listeners or from within ourselves, where we feel like, wow, that feels easier or that flows better, then we should probably capitalize on that. And then we can do the other stuff in private. But if we want to like publicly be recognized, we should probably be feeding the world what they're telling us that we're good at doing. That's how I became a teacher instead of a performer, because people kept telling me that I was a good teacher. So like then I didn't want to be a teacher because I had this like those who can't do teach idea, but I can teach, and so I do teach.
I'm with you on that one. I get that nonsense on YouTube all the time. You had a quote, you called the Passaggio the Boogeyman. Explain that a bit more.
Well, as soon as we label something with that word that is not even in English, right? The Passaggio, it already sounds mysterious and it already sounds intimidating to me. And it sounds like sophisticated. And I call it the Boogeyman because, I mean, to be honest, there are many professional singers that never work that out because how they sing doesn't require it. In fact, I think a lot of singers before the microphone came in didn't work it out. A lot of those crooners and belters. And then I think the microphone came in and we were able to sing like with softer sounds and things like that. And then we have to kind of navigate how to get those sounds without being so loud. But I don't believe that every singer should have the aim, to be honest, of like working that out. I think that's just become a thing that everybody thinks they need to do before they get, to where they want to be. And I don't believe that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're talking, because I have said, look, you need to be able to make the sounds that you want to make in a consistent manner, in as healthy a way as possible. But ultimately, you define your limits and you define how you want to sing. So I would imagine it's along those lines.
Well, you have to be in charge. And some singers that didn't work their passaggio out, they'll flip it to falsetto when they get to the top and they make a stylistic choice and they have great careers like that. And then some singers work that passaggio out like no one else and then they like capitalize on that. And so that's a choice that we have. I just don't think we should be telling all singers that until you do this, you can't move forward in your performing career. If that's something that the person is interested in, like I was and am, and like I know you are and like students want that, yeah, we'll do everything we can to give that to them. But it's not a necessity or a requirement. And I'm just feeling as I say that this is probably going to be one of the more controversial podcasts because it's very antithetical to the way that, we all speak as voice teachers. I'm kind of like a lone wolf and a bit of an iconoclast just to start.
Yeah, but I think it's really valid if a student says, look, I want to sing this way. If Chris Martin of Coldplay says, look, I want to flip at a certain point in my voice, this is my style, then you can show them options. But if that's what they want, then that's what you give them. I agree. I don't believe that I have to enforce everything on a student. So yeah. It's really, we're here to facilitate what the student wants because contemporary music is not constrained, right? They can create their own material.
And I think you and I know it's not a secret that many, many, many successful famous singers have not worked their passaggio out.
That's
true. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah.
And many, and I struggled with this when I was working technique, but some of my favorite singers have mediocre technique.
Yeah. And so like, what's wrong with that is my question. I commend and appreciate and love those people that have incredible technique because that's what they, want or because that's what they have a facility with. But I also commend people that are having great careers without having achieved that. And, they deal with the consequences of that as they show up. And then sometimes they are motivated to clean their technique up because it's not sustainable or whatever. But like, who are we to say, you must work this out before you allow yourself to, work as a singer? And so I call the passaggio the Boogeyman because, a lot of people will not allow themselves to do much with their voice until they've perfected that. But for me, my passaggio stuff got resolved when I was like, you know what? Like, I haven't figured it out, but I'm going to write songs, I'm going to sing. And then like just keep moving and instead of waiting for the magical day when this is sorted out. And then my passaggio issues got more and more resolved. But until I was like, I can't do anything until this is perfected, I was just stuck in a plateau that I couldn't go beyond.
And I think that really just speaks to us comparing ourselves to others. And if I can't do it the way this singer does, that I'm not worthy to sing. And we put these pressures on us, and the voice does not respond well to stress and pressure.
Exactly. Or comparison like that, because it's you're vicariously reaching to be a soul that is not you. So that's why I say you have to be the soul that you are and know what that is, and take that from where it is now to where you would want it to go. So I'm not saying you're stuck with what you have. I'm saying, like, challenge yourself, but don't use another one as a metric to, like, gauge where you should be, because then I think that's just going to lead to a lot of compensation and comparison. And that doesn't just apply to singing. That applies to everything else. You have to, it's that biblical thing, like, be still and know, And so, like, that stillness gets lost when you're scanning the outside world and comparing yourself. And I was in musical theater, and if there's a field that is full of that, the reason why I left it was because I couldn't take it anymore, how much comparison can go on in that world of, like, oh, that she's got the mixed belt and I got the belt, and she's got the this and she can do that, and he's got the this, and then that's with the voice, but then with the body and the face and the type and the weight and the shape, and it's just like, you have to stop that. And until you stop that, in my view, you haven't really, really, truly begun. You're just kind of in a fun house, you know what I mean?
Gabriel, how can people find out more about you?
So I have a website. It's contemporaryvoicelessons.com. And you can get to my Instagram from there. My Instagram, I don't know what happened, but it mysteriously got reported and, like, deactivated. So I have a new one. It's Gabriel Weiner. It's my name as you see spelled, I think, and .voice. So it's GabrielWeiner.voice. And that's my Instagram, and I'm on Facebook and Twitter. You can get those from my website.
Gabriel, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for giving me the space.
Absolutely.
Okay.